Jurassic Park is one of the most iconic movies ever made, but hidden inside it are dozens of strange, dark, and completely unnecessary details that most people never notice. Some of these are pretty dark, so you've been warned. So let's get straight into it. Number 1. The T-Rex animatronic would famously malfunction in the rain between takes. This nearly caused a death on set. The glass on top of the Ford Explorer was never meant to smash, and the T-Rex was never meant to hit into it until it did. 3. The T-Rex roar isn't one animal, it's a mix of dog, penguin, tiger, alligator, and most importantly, a baby elephant. 4. The famous water ripple in the cup was created using a guitar string under the dashboard. 5. The mud in the T-Rex attack scene was real and incredibly slippery for the actors. 6. In the novel, the dinosaurs are far more aggressive and unpredictable. 7. Some deaths that were scripted were far too dark to even display on the big scene, so were cut entirely, Dennis Nedry being an example. 8. Raptors in the book are described as far more intelligent and cruel, actually killing people for the fun of it. 9. The compies, the small dinosaurs, are responsible for multiple deaths in the book, yet we don't see a single death in the first movie. Now this one's pretty dark. 10. The compies in the book are actually responsible for killing a newborn baby in the hospital. 11. Some of the dinosaurs had already left their enclosures before the events of the main movie. 12. The raptors were actually testing the fences way before the main breakout scene. 13. The raptors had actually escaped before the events of the movie, hence why we see them in the raptor containment pen. Originally, they were out in the park in the raptor paddock. 14. The Dilophosaurus in the movie is completely fictional. No frill, no venoms in real life. 15. The iconic Welcome to Jurassic Park banner was made just for one shot. 16. The Ford Explorers in the tour were actually real vehicles modified to drive automatically. 17. The shaving cream can used by Nedry was designed specifically for the movie. 18. The kitchen raptor scene was one of the last sequences ever to be filmed. 19. In the opening scene of Jurassic Park, Jeffrey's death is covered up as a loading accident, which proves how dodgy InGen really are. 20. The electric fences were the only things keeping predators contained. There were no moats, despite John Hammond saying they were. Muldoon references this by saying the T-Rex can move in and out of any paddock it likes. 21. In the event of emergency, there was no emergency plan ever put in place. 22. In the novel, the raptors didn't just hunt, they toyed with their play. They even tested doors, observed behavior, and learned specific patterns. 23. In the novel, Dennis Nedry doesn't just die. He's blinded, gutted, disorientated, and starts being eaten whilst he's still alive. 24. The Tyrannosaurus Rex doesn't always hunt. It investigates, then kills anyway. 25. The T-Rex breakout wasn't just an escape, it was curiosity turning deadly. 26. In the novel, the compies actually consume their victims while they're still alive. They use a venom to paralyze the victim and put them in like a drug-like state and literally eat them alive. 27. In the novel, the compies are actually the ones responsible for John Hammond's death. They paralyze him and then slowly eat him alive while he's conscious. 28. The dinosaurs weren't behaving like animals, they were literally just behaving unpredictably. 29. Jurassic Park's dinosaurs aren't pure, they're genetic hybrids. The movie even tells us this. They use frog DNA to fill in the sequence gaps. 30. The tour actually only showed a fraction of the park. Many areas of the park were actually off limits, even to staff. 31. In the novels, the dinosaurs actually began migrating off the island. Some were able to swim, and some were hitching rides on Jurassic Park's boats. Some even reached the mainland undetected at first and were attacking people on beaches. That's where the scene in the Lost World Jurassic Park actually came from. 32. Ray Arnold in the book actually has most of Malcolm's lines. They took Ray Arnold's lines and gave them to Malcolm for the film. 33. Ray Arnold had an entire sequence where his death, subsequent attack by the raptor, was going to be filmed. Hurricane Carissa actually hit their filming location, so they had to evacuate. And to save on cost and time, they decided to cut that scene entirely from the movie, despite having several props, including the arm, which we actually see in the final version. Gennaro in the novel versus the film is completely different. You see, Gennaro in the novel was actually a hero character, built quite stocky, and was more a bodybuilder lawyer compared to his frail, scrawny, cowardly self in the movie. 35. The big one wasn't actually the big one. There was no difference in size or coloration between the models used in the raptors in Jurassic Park. Visually, they were completely identical, so the fact that Robert Muldoon could tell them apart was likely down to the behavior rather than physical appearance. Robert Muldoon survives Jurassic Park. We all know of the legendary clever girl scene in Jurassic Park where Robert Muldoon comes face to face with the velociraptors. We see the velociraptors attack him and it is assumed he dies from them injuries. But in the novel, this isn't the case at all. Robert Muldoon is attacked by the velociraptors, and he manages to escape by squeezing into a pipe that was out of the velociraptor's reach. Muldoon ultimately managed to survive, leaving the island with the rest of the survivors. And not only that fact, in all versions of the script except the final version used for the film, Robert Muldoon actually survived the Isla Nublar incident, so he was originally intended to survive all along. This has led many people to actually theorize that Robert Muldoon survived and left the island of his own accord, or was rescued by the InGen cleanup team. 37. Muldoon's death scene was actually going to be extremely gory. They had to censor this by using foliage to ensure they had a PG rating. 38. In the novel, Alan Grant gets out of the car to run away. He was never planning to save the kids. He froze in fear and instead just stood there while the Rex came up to him. 39. Remember the raptor hatchling scene pretty early on in Jurassic Park's runtime? Well, have you ever thought what actually happened to that raptor? I mean, he would literally be left abandoned, right? Well, in the novel, this is thoroughly explained. Towards the end of the novel, they actually come back into contact with the raptor, and it's actually developed a bond with Tim. At this point, they decide to pick up the raptor, but they have the other fully grown adult raptors chasing them. So in order to distract them, Tim decides to give them their baby back. This is all while they were hiding in one of the labs behind a counter. They push the raptor out into the open, the baby raptor that is, and the adult raptor sees it, anticipating that they're going to become a family once more. This doesn't happen though. The adult raptors decide to rip the baby raptor to complete shreds. 40. The iconic Triceratops scene with Alan Grant and the crew actually had planned to feature a baby Triceratops with the mother. Ultimately, this was cut, but they'd already made the animatronic for this scene. The animatronic never went to waste though. They decided to use that again in the Lost World Jurassic Park. 41. Muldoon already knew the raptors were out of control. From the moment we meet him, Muldoon isn't confident. He's cautious, and he'd already seen what the raptors could do, hence why he wanted them destroyed from the very beginning. 42. The park was never fully built. Large sections of the island was still incomplete during the tour. Guests were being shown a version of the park that didn't actually exist yet. 43. The control room was a single point of failure. Everything, the security fences, tracking, everything ran through one automated system, which means one breach took down the entirety of the park. Not to mention, if the system failed, there was no way to turn that system back on from that control room. 44. The dinosaurs were already breeding long before the events of the first film. The park insists they can't reproduce, but we actually see Alan Grant come into contact with a clutch of eggs. 45. The original T-Rex attack was scripted to be much longer. The original version of the breakout was far more drawn out and brutal. It was shortened due to pacing. 46. The lawyer's death was almost completely different. His fate was changed multiple times during development, and the final version became iconic, but also darker in tone. He was killed on the toilet. 47. The legend of the river raft scene was cut. In the original novel, Grant and the kids escaped via a river, very akin to the scene we see in Rebirth. Many rumors circulated this scene was storyboarded and scripted and shot. These are completely false. It was never planned for the movie. 48. The original ending was way darker. Early drafts leaned into a darker conclusion about the control failure, where we'd see John Hammond actually ripped to shreds by a pack of raptors in the control room. There are also several other versions of John Hammond's death. They can be seen in this video here. 49. Jurassic Park intended to have a completely different ending. You know where we see the T-Rex come in and save the day? Well, that was actually planned to be John Hammond come in with a Spaz shotgun and take down the velociraptors. Ultimately, this was cut and they thought the T-Rex being the hero was the best move. 50. Hammond was way darker in the novel, to the point where he didn't even care what happened to his grandkids. He's kind of like that in Jurassic Park because he's seen there sat eating ice cream while his kids are out in the park, but he's way darker in the novel. 51. The park had several more species than shown in Jurassic Park. We only see a fraction of what was actually on the island, and see several dinosaurs' DNA in the scene where Dennis Nedry's literally stealing the embryos. 53. The T-Rex animatronic weighed over 9 tons. 54. When wet, it absorbed water and became even heavier, causing the mechanical failure issues I mentioned at the start of this video. 55. The line "clever girl" was almost entirely cut from the movie. 56. The entire control room set had to be rebuilt from scratch after the storm damage. 57. The T-Rex Paddock changes heights between shots. Sometimes you see flat ground, another time it becomes a massive drop. Hence the huge debate, how did the T-Rex get over the massive drop? 58. Jurassic Park had actually cloned bugs, well specifically a giant dragonfly. This is never seen in the movie and only referenced during the novel. 59. An entire sequence where Ellie Sattler picks up the giant plant is completely removed from the film. She just ends up with a giant plant in the scene with the Brachiosaurus. 60. Dennis Nedry wasn't the sole reason for Jurassic Park failing. The park was already failing way before Nedry. Nedry just explores deeper flaws. 61. The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park came come through as a mixture of real-life animatronic puppets and CGI. This can be seen in the raptors entering the kitchen scene, because you can see a crew member holding its tail to steady it. 62. Dennis Nedry's missing bag. In one shot, Dennis Nedry has his bag, in the next, he doesn't. Where's it gone? 63. Where did the T-Rex come from in the end of the film? During the climax, obviously the T-Rex comes into the visitor center and no one was able to see it. Not the humans or the dinosaurs. And it often left people wondering how that T-Rex got into the visitor center. People assumed it was a mistake. Well, actually, there's a big hole inside of the wall behind them. If you look closely in various scenes, you can actually see this, and the visitor center wasn't complete. The T-Rex could have just come through that hole in the wall. It was never fully explained during the movie, because as Spielberg said, there's a frickin' T-Rex on screen, man. 64, where we see Dennis Nedry stealing the embryos, there's actually several spelling mistakes, which is unusual for highly advanced scientists. They spell Tyrannosaurus with only one N instead of two. Stegosaurus is also spelled wrong, but you get the point. 65, the foreshadowing in this film is unbelievable. The belt buckle scene with Dr. Grant. All dinosaurs are female. Alan Grant decides to tie the two female belt buckles together, indicating that life will indeed find a way. 66, black and white. There's a reason why Malcolm wears all black and Hammond wears all white. It's to signify how different the characters and their views are against each other, and the huge difference in their personalities and beliefs. 67, the company name InGen means nobody in Norwegian, obviously indicating nobody as in they're all dinosaurs. 68, this is a very interesting one. Not a single dinosaur is killed directly by a human being in the entirety of the movie. Even though there was a dinosaur locked in the freezer, the jury is still out whether it's dead or not, because of Jurassic World Survivor shows that freezer door being opened. 69, quick one. In every scene, Ray Arnold is seen with a cigarette in his mouth. 70, the set accident where Sam Neill actually burned himself on a flare. According to himself, he said, "It dropped some burning phosphorus on me and got under my watch, and it took a chunk out of his arm." 71, the cut riding Triceratops scene. Remember that Triceratops I spoke about earlier? Well, there was a scene where Lex and Tim would encounter the baby Triceratops, and they would actually be able to ride it. 72, in the book, Timmy is the older sibling and the tech-savvy expert, and Lex is the younger, annoying sibling. 73, in the book, Dr. Henry Wu dies when a raptor jumps on him and eats him alive. All of this while Ellie Sattler watches on and lets out a massive scream, unable to do anything. 74, in the book, Ian Malcolm actually dies, which was extremely strange because he appears in the Lost World Jurassic Park. It's explained in the Lost World Jurassic Park novel that he was just slightly dead. 75, just before we see John Hammond eating ice cream, we see a plush of a saber-toothed tiger, which is never seen in any Jurassic media apart from Camp Cretaceous Season 4. Sparking many theories, did Jurassic Park actually have any other things other than dinosaurs? 76, there were actually plans to have the Jungle River Cruise scenes filmed, not to mention there were concept arts for various aquatic animals and dinosaurs. Ultimately, these were cut from the film and never featured, although we do see a Tylosaurus, an aquatic facility, in Jurassic Park the game. And 77, Jurassic Park Zero. Jurassic Park Zero is literally a comic set before the events of the first film. Basically follows Dennis Nedry and his interactions with Hammond and setting up the park. It's not extremely dark, and some of these entries are not extremely dark, but I found them extremely interesting nonetheless, hence why I decided to include them on this list. And if you want to learn more about the Jurassic Park lore and all other kinds of dark and mysterious things, I have several theories on the channel and a huge iceberg which you will not be disappointed with, so I highly recommend watching that after this. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for any dinosaur related content and Jurassic Park content. I am your man. Massive thanks to the InGen security team which are on screen now. You guys keep the power on in the park. Awesome battles, Exploding Banana, Fallen Zuria, DVM Wannabe 1018, and our Jurassic CEOs, Call of Duty Chocolate, Zarkadian, and Joseph Frost Ghost. Thanks guys. And if you came across a stealing content thief out in the open, could your day go any worse? You bet Jurassic can. Catch you later.